practices during COVID, working with sellers and buyers, and showings on your listings. That's a mouthful. Thank you to Melissa Garlisi for the suggestion.
Morning.
Nice.
Thanks, Missy.
Sorry, Steve.
So there's been a lot of stuff going on, right? So, Melissa, do you want to talk about why you wanted to bring this topic up?
Sure. I'm looking to get input from all of you about what you're seeing in the market and what's been most successful in your own practices. I had 2 seller listings that came on the market about, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, a little less than 2 weeks ago, and I received a lot of criticism from particular agents. I'll go nameless, but it worked.
Need some muscle? I'm more than happy.
On showing instructions and how showings were handled, and no open houses, and we make those decisions with our seller clients based on what their needs are or what the occupancy of their home looks like. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily know that I would have done things very differently. So I'm just curious as to what all of you are doing and finding to be most successful, but again, with keeping in mind what's going to be best for your sellers. I mean, they are the ones who are opening their homes, occupying their homes, putting their health at risk, letting people come in and just touch. Who knows if they're wearing gloves or masks, or it seems to not really matter these days. It's just kind of a free-for-all. Also, in one particular case, I have a listing on Summer Street in Weymouth, and it's an antique home. It was built in the 1840s. I knew the price point was going to be super attractive. It was in the 420s. 2 bathrooms, 3 bedrooms, about 1,400 square feet. So, I was prepared for the onslaught, and I went ahead and scheduled a Matterport tour with just very specific instructions stating, this is an antique home. This is the nature of the basement. This is what it looks like. Please review the Matterport with your clients before booking your appointment. And out of, 70 showings over 3 days, we received 2 offers, and only 2 offers, which is great, only 2 offers, which sounds ridiculous to say, but the feedback was, all the same. Nature of the basement, nature of the staircases, didn't like the antique nature, too old, too this, too that. Well, do you read remarks? Do you look at Matterport tours? I mean, apparently not. So I'm beginning to wonder, do I need a tour right now, or do I just go with the professional photography that I've always used? So I've got 10,000 questions, so we only have an hour. So let's just go.
So Melissa, when the agents were complaining about your getting into your listing, was it because you didn't have an open house that they were upset, or was it because it was already under agreement and it was only individual showings, or what was the situation?
Some agents complained that I didn't have an open house session.
Okay.
Showings were scheduled every 15 minutes, 3 days in a row, from 8:30 in the morning until 7 o'clock at night. And my sellers work from home, so they had to figure out 3 weekdays how to vacate the property. So that was number one. And number 2 was that we didn't set an offer deadline. And not all sellers want to set an offer deadline. So if you're a buyer agent assuming that there is one, then, shame on you. And then you have agents telling you, what to do. In one particular case, someone had shown the property at, 6 o'clock on a Friday night. And that was the 3rd day of showings. And he was frustrated. He expressed his frustration after he showed the property because he wasn't able to get a showing earlier in the week. We were already booked. And then when he called or sent me a text message at 8 o'clock on Friday night to say, my buyers are really excited. They're going to take some time to think about it. I may have an offer for you tomorrow. He was disappointed to learn that the property was already under agreement. So that the sellers had accepted an offer just, an hour or 2 before. So I let him know when, he lambasted me about, you should have set an offer deadline. You should have done this. You should have done that. Your sellers would have had more offers to choose from. They would have sold for more money, blah, blah, blah. So I just basically shut the guy down and said, well, you should have called this morning to see what the status of the property was. So, if you were into what's happening in this buyer market, you would have done so.
Screw that, dude.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm just trying to, it's hard to put your arms around an elephant. It's difficult, I think, to know what the best decisions are for the seller when you're trying to anticipate what the buyer and agent reactions are going to be,
Well, doesn't it come down to really what the seller's desires are? Like what's
Definitely.
important to them? And then you base your marketing campaign around what the sellers specifically want. I mean, we're not required, I don't think it's written anywhere that when we take a listing, we also have to include an offer deadline.
Correct.
So, I mean, I got frustrated recently working with a buyer that wanted to see a property, and then next thing you know, it went under agreement or under offer accepted. So I understand from the other side, how frustrating it is, especially now with the way the market is. However, it's a shitty market to be a buyer agent in.
It is. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Yeah, that's a good point, Bill. The sellers don't have any obligation to do anything other than to just set the terms and parameters that are best for them.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you, Bill, but I think it falls on us to come up with a plan that is suitable, that is going to best serve our clients and give, everybody a fair opportunity. I personally don't like offer deadlines. I think they're a joke. But I was just involved in one. And like Bill said, you know what? It's really tough to be a buyer agent. Focus on getting listings and don't cry in your soup when you don't get the offer accepted.
Right.
Just come up
I also think there's something to be said on the other side about being like nimble, right? Like,
yeah.
Like that guy's upset because he couldn't schedule early enough, probably because he didn't see the listing come up early enough, probably because he wasn't proactively looking for his client. He was letting his client find the property, send it to him and be like, well, I have 18 different things going on today. I can only get there with you at 3 p.m. Like something like that probably what happened. Like that's on
3.
That's on him. Like,
Yeah.
That's on you, buddy. Like, get some more leverage. Understand the market that we're in right now. You have to know and have to understand if you don't get your client in there that first day, the likelihood of your offer getting looked at is slim to none. So, like, that's on his understanding of the market. Like, I know Mark can probably speak to, like, how many times we have conversations with clients that are like, listen, if this house pops up in your price range, my guess is there's only 4 of them in the state. So you got to be ready to go see it. And if you're not, you're going to lose out on it. And if you're going to take the night to think about it, somebody's writing an offer that's going to get accepted. When you wake up in the morning, you're going to see that contingent when you log into Zillow to see what's going on with the property.
Corey,
Like
you're absolutely right, which brings back to our practice as real estate professionals. Don't just meet people at properties. You got to have that minimum 30-minute consultation to outline all that stuff, and you prep them so that your experience is going to be better. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I got in a little late. I didn't know what the actual agenda is, so I'm hoping that ties into the agenda, Kristen.
It does. I'll read it to you again. It's about setting expectations with everybody that you're working with, right?
Good.
And all you can do is what you can do, and you can't control all the other agents. So you just have to be that much better at what you're doing.
Right.
The topic is best practices during COVID, working with sellers and buyers and showings on your listings.
So if I could just add to that, I see Bobby Malone there. Good morning, Bobby.
Morning, sir.
Best practices, I mean, besides the 30-minute consult, introducing them to your team, the lender involved, the attorneys involved, before they even look at property. Hey, here's who's on your team. We got Bobby Malone, we got Rick Murray and Lisa Axios, we got attorney blank, and just outline everything before you even look at houses. And like Corey said, set those expectations. If it comes on, you got to leave work. You got to literally leave work and meet me in 30 minutes and create that urgency, because it is that urgent out there. It's kind of crazy. And offer presentation has to be, do not handwrite it. We got an offer. Everything was handwritten and it was illegible. And my client looked at it and said, "Are you serious?" And I feel bad. The guy's a great agent, but the offer presentation, I think, is vital in order to increase your client's chances of getting their offer accepted. I mean, wouldn't you all agree?
Yes.
Really just crossing every T, dotting the I's, and even going overboard, having that cover letter, maybe having Bob give them a call. I mean, anything you can do for your client is going to give them a little bit of edge.
And that's what we should all be doing anyways. It's
Yeah.
kind of like COVID. They like wash your hands. We should have been washing our hands anyways, right?
Now you're telling me.
That agent,
Surprise.
that agent had to been their first buyer, especially this late in the COVID. Because I've had multiple buyers, and from the get-go, you learn right away how it works out there. And you have to educate the buyers, and especially for disappointment, because that's what's out there for buyers right now is disappointment. I mean, I've made minimum of 3 offers for each one of my buyers. It was no, 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 no. And I said, if you hang in there, you know, it will work, and you just learn from each one. But for just to give the realtor a hard time it had to been his first buyer.
It's so true, Margaret. It's so true. And honestly, I realized, then that he was just embarrassed. And with his clients, and when I looked at his production, he works for a hoity-toity office in Duxbury. And when I looked up his production, all of his listings and all of his buyer sales were more in like the 7 to the 1.5 range. And here he was slumming it in Weymouth at 427.
I think that's the same guy that lost out on one of our listings. So he's having a bad week.
Yeah. So, he was embarrassed, and he just needed to go on, but it just didn't get me thinking, like, Rick, to your point, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything. And it's always good to, collaborate with your colleagues to make sure that you're considering everything. And Corey, to your point about setting expectations and the consultation, you have to be on your game as a buyer agent. Part of the best practices right now is absolutely to have a buyer agreement with every buyer, because as Rick said, why would you go out and meet a buyer at a property in this crazy market if you've never met them? Even if they've called on your sign, why would you do that? Because then maybe you're missing an opportunity for that time slot for someone who is motivated, has been disappointed already, is pre-approved, they're ready to go. They're just waiting for someone to recognize their offer. So have a contract. We always have contracts with our sellers. Why would you not have a contract with a buyer? That's just a bad idea right now.
Yeah, and it's crucial to have that appointment too, because you need to really figure out what the buyer's expectations are. One of the people that I'm coaching has a buyer, and every single offer that they've written is 40,000 under asking. Every single one. And I'm reviewing it. I'm like, they're not going to get it, but okay, you need to have that conversation that no one in this market is taking 40,000 under. They're just not. And she's running on ragged with them, and now they've cut ties, but I mean, what a waste of time writing all these offers and going all over the place, showing somebody something when you're going to get nothing at the end.
Yeah, I have a question for Bob Malone, because Bob, you have a little bit of a wider glance than we do. We're KW agents, but you see a lot of agents across the area and the region. Are you seeing any unique practices that you could share with us? I mean, I know that maybe last year or 2 years ago, that whole you making a phone call or even a video to people, that was really awesome.
Yeah.
What are you seeing out there now that you can share?
Yeah, I think, it's really about, just off the top of my head here, number one, it's the relationship with the listing agent, right? So it seems like the offers that are getting accepted for the most part are buyer's agents that can reach out to the listing agent, not just be a name on a white piece of paper, but someone who reaches out and tries to understand what that listing agent, what the sellers need, number one. Number two, it's aggressiveness, right? So is aggressiveness even a word? So being aggressive and getting out there and, being the squeaky wheel as a buyer's agent too, and having your control of your buyers so that they will be aggressive with their offer as well, if it's the right house for them. And then along with them being aggressive, that buyer's agent being aggressive, it's calling me to make sure that the pre-approval is squared away, making sure that the pre-approval promise is there and that the listing agent understands what it means. Mark, probably 3 times a week, maybe more. Mark will tell me, Mark Gilson here on the call will tell me that, hey, we're making an offer on this particular house. Here's the listing agent's information. Give him a call, please. And he includes in that text message to me the listing agent's phone number, the listing agent's name, and the property address. So it's just easy for me because even on the road, even if I'm driving, I hit the button and I'm calling and talking about that borrower, and I just think that is so, so important. And then finally, I think too, having that pre-approval, tight is so important. If your buyer's working with a lender and they send you a pre-approval that you as a buyer's agent look at and say I don't even know what this pre-approval is based on. It seems really ambiguous. The listing agent's going to have those same concerns, and chances are pretty good because, like you guys are saying, things are going so fast right now that you don't have the luxury of sending the lender your documents the day that they find a house that they made an offer on, because those documents have to be reviewed for that pre-approval to be, worth the paper it's written on, And so stay on top of your buyers to get the lender the documents they're asking you for, pay stubs, W-2s, tax returns, and go from there. I think those are the things that where I'm seeing the buyer's agents that have their offers that get accepted. It's relationships. It's them really being aggressive and on point on all fronts.
And if I could add to that, Bob, as you were talking, staying on top of your buyers and I'm thinking of the word reactionary. We had our house on Lunar Ave in Braintree, $40,000 over the asking, and the buyers showed up at the property the next day before giving escrow and walked the lot with their grandparents and suddenly made this irrational decision to withdraw, and they just had buyer's remorse. And we had a backup offer right there on deck. So we said, okay, no problem. And my client signed the backup offer. Well, the very next morning and every morning since, which has been about 5 mornings, the buyer agent is like, please, they changed their mind. They do want to move forward. I'm like, it's too late. So imagine if their agent had said, hey, listen, you're suffering from buyer's remorse. Why don't you see how you feel tomorrow morning? Instead of calling me right away and pulling out. They lost out. And our client lost out on a lot of money. So that's another tip I think that would be helpful to everyone in this call is, you know what? Be a consultant and give the advice that your client needs. You might be freaking out because it is that kind of market. Take a breather. Don't react and just wait to see how you feel in the morning.
Yeah, Rick, good point. I had a client, they're like, forget it, we're done. I'm taking the house off the market. We're not moving forward. I'm like, you said that to me 100 times. We'll just see what, I mean, could you imagine if I called everyone and said, all right, forget it, draw everything up, we're out? Because of course, 2 hours later, he was just, the wife called. He's just emotional. Yeah. It's very emotional times now, not just in real estate, but in their life in general, right? So you have to just, even if they say pull it out, just wait. They probably don't mean it.
We're not just realtors. We are,
psychiatrists,
therapists. Yeah.
And that's really where too, the book that Corey mentioned last week, The Subtle Art, that's really where it's about not being driven by emotion, right? And so when, we've all bought and sold houses ourselves, even while we're in this industry. So when we're buying it and or selling, our home, we feel that emotion. And that's oftentimes why you might have, as a realtor, you don't list your own house, right? You have somebody else do it because you feel the emotions there, and you're looking at it not like you look at the other homes you're selling, but you're looking at it like it's your home, right? So it's totally different. So just about, getting that, Rick, that was a really good example of just getting the emotion out of it, being able to take a step back as a professional and say, you know what, let's just give it 24 hours to breathe, right? There's nothing, but if you get emotional, you get that emotional phone call, and I have to jump on that next call too, because I'm emotional too. They got me all riled up, right? You're not doing, and you got to learn. I mean, I think we all probably got into this business acting that way, and then something in this business turned us, right? And just knowing
made our hearts cold.
You made our hearts cold. Yeah, right.
It was a coup broke with Al Stiles. That's what did it for me.
Yeah, right, exactly. So you can serve your client at a higher level, oftentimes by caring less. And it's really not caring less, it's caring in a different way. but just not acting emotional, right?
Yeah, because you're reacting so fast and then they come back and say, oh no, forget it, never mind. And now it's too late. Now you've already blown the deal up and then they blame you. So that's how you learn.
I mean, you
Not to
look
do
at it, that's why they pay us, is to
Yeah.
really be that, that unemotional pillar of,
You know, one of the things I think right up front is you got to tell people is like, listen, my job here is to make things as smooth as possible for you. But I have to tell you, like, something's going to pop up that's going to make you feel some kind of way. And that's normal. It's okay. Just remember that when that stuff's happening, it's okay. We'll talk it through. You know, we have those kind of discussions up front as much as we can, you know, with people. And just reminding them, like, listen, we want to make this as smooth as possible. Here's our process, but just know you're going to run into some bumps in the road. It's going to make you feel kind of crazy. And that if you don't feel crazy during a real estate transaction, something's up. Like something's too good to be true, you know, and kind of reminding people so that when it does happen, you'd be like, hey, remember we talked about this, you know, 30 days ago, and here we are about to close and the appraisal got pushed back and you feel like you're not going to close. Like, I promise you, this is a normal thing. To you, I understand it doesn't seem that way, but it is. Just relax. I'm using that example because I've had 4 of those happen to me this week. I feel like, you know, like, oh, the appraisal company, this, that, and the other thing. And we have clients who are upset and this, that, and try to tell them, hey, I told you, like, it was going really well. It still is, but this is the thing that's popped up. So just relax. Like I think Bob just said, let it breathe, let it marinate, and we'll see what happens. And, you know, here we go. The appraisals are happening. Things are all coming together, and, you know, we're going to be just fine. And I think having those discussions up front and just telling people like, hey, this is a real thing. Like, it's okay. Is helpful, you know, because then you're not reacting to their emotions.
And, you know, one of the coaches in the core in there, and now things might have changed a little bit because of COVID, but in their office, in their meeting room, they have a big, big glass bowl, and in it are little branded not styrofoam, but like foamy airplanes, right? And that just look like regular commercial jets. And during their presentation or during their conversation, they talk about turbulence, right? And how we're going to land this plane safely. You guys are going to get the house that you want. We're going to land this plane safely, but, you know, you're never going to, take a plane ride. The pilot's never going to promise that there's not going to be any turbulence. There will be turbulence, and we will get through it. I promise you. And they give them that airplane so that 3 months later, when it does come up, that turbulence, they can say, remember that airplane that I gave you? So they have it, they see it, they feel it, you know, and that's, that's a great way to remind people. Remember that airplane? I do remember that airplane, and now I remember that conversation.
Lisa, let's buy some airplanes today.
That's it.
Right.
Big run on airplanes.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I love that parallel. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That actually, as a side, kind of reminds me of a script that I learned one time from, I think it was Daryl Davis. And he talks about, you know, this is for anyone who's talking to either expireds or someone who's like, I'm never using a realtor again. The experience was so badly. You say, listen, if you had to get from Boston to California, you know, how would you walk? Would you drive? You know, you have to be there, right? You have to be there today. Would you walk or would you drive? Or would you fly? Well, I would fly. Okay. You know, if you had a bad experience with one airline, doesn't mean that you're swearing off flying altogether. You might choose a different airline. You might not fly in that same plane. You know,
Awesome.
I'm that different airline. You know, I will make the flight a little bit more smooth for you. That's funny that you brought that up, because that's a great script for people who are bizbos or expires who are swearing off realtors.
Well, it's like the restaurant. I think you use the restaurant as an example too. Like, if you have a bad experience at one restaurant, doesn't mean you'll never go out to eat at a restaurant again.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one.
You know,
what are you finding with oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just wondering what you guys are seeing with appraisals coming back on your listings.
We're waiting for one that was about, I think we had one about a month ago on Regatta. Nothing. We've heard nothing from. It's been weeks. Yeah.
What about them coming? So they're so busy that it's taking weeks for them to go up to see it. What about them coming back? Are the prices coming back at your
Well, they're not even
asking
back.
price, or are they coming under?
Oh, it's been weeks since they've come back with the results. I mean, there were 2 people, and it was a really long appraisal, and nothing's happened. I'm waiting.
I haven't had any appraisal issues that I've been made aware of. I don't know if they got fixed on the back end. Like, I know sometimes that can happen without me even knowing about it. Like, the lender can kind of say, hey, you know, can we do X, Y, and Z? But nothing that has come up where I've had to approach a client and be like, hey, listen, we're short 40 grand, you know. We have a bunch that are supposed to land like the end of this week, so it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But I think all of those will be okay.
That's another one of our responsibilities, I think, for our buyers right now too.
One of the things, just a little bit of background, we might have touched on a little bit last week when we had Bob Hadge on the call here. But back in the old days, up until what, 2009 maybe, we were able to order appraisals as loan officers on our own. So I'd order from the same person because I knew that they'd do a good job and wouldn't give me any crap appraisals back, right? But obviously the laws changed because bad lenders out there were telling appraisers, hey, this thing better come in at 700,000 or you're never getting another appraisal order from us again. And so it led to a lot of bad appraisals in the industry. Now the rules have changed so that loan officers like me, I can't order an appraisal by myself anymore. In fact, there's a safeguard out there for mortgage companies and banks that order appraisals, where if they order an appraisal through an outside appraisal management company, an AMC appraisal management company, then the lender has a lot less risk in that regard, because it's basically guaranteed that when they order that appraisal and that AMC orders that appraisal on behalf of that lender, that the integrity of that appraisal is going to be much higher than in other places, right? So Radius made the decision when this AMC issue came out to create our own AMC department, so we control the the appraisers that or our appraisal orders, right? So I still don't know who it is. I can't talk to the person at my appraisal desk and say, hey, who is this appraiser? So I can call them now and tell them what I needed to come in at. That doesn't happen. But Radius incurs more risk that way. But we do it the right way so we don't get in trouble. And it also allows for us to control the process much, much better. Now, I'm going to wrap it all up. I know I've been kind of long-winded on this, but maybe, Lisa, what you're running into is a company that uses an appraisal management company. So literally, it's your bank, your buyer's bank, brokers out the appraisal order. So now I have to go through an AMC channel to say, hey, can you get me an update on this appraisal, please? It's supposed to be in 2 weeks ago. And maybe I'm one of 100 loan officers at that company, and that AMC works for 100 different mortgage companies, right? And that appraiser knows that it's such a huge company that they don't really have to give the same kind of service that they give to, say, Radius, because if the same appraiser ignores us for an extended period of time over multiple files, they know they're going to get booted from the list, right? So it's a lot easier for us to control that. So I don't know who you're using, but maybe just find out if they have an outside AMC or if they order the appraisals in-house themselves, because it is honestly a huge, huge difference.
We're the seller's agent on this one. So it's, we're just waiting.
Yeah, it's tough.
Bob, to your point, I think we're dealing with one of those right now, because I think one of those AMCs, outside or third-party AMCs or whatever, was setting up an appraisal for us, and I hadn't heard from the appraiser. I told the buyer's agent that, and he said, okay, I'll look into it. And I know that some of the appraisers are still doing the drive-by sort of thing. So, I can't tell you how many physical appraisals we've had to go to in the last 4 months, maybe 2, but that the AMC had our wrong contact information.
Oh.
Some number that wasn't us. They didn't look us up to call us or anything like that. And they said they had been calling, and finally get an email the day that the commitment is due saying we couldn't get a hold of Corey. He's been avoiding our phone calls. Oh. So I called the lender and I said, which number did they have? And they gave me some phone number that was not even close to us at all. And I think that was the issue. Again, obviously I do a lot of work with Bob. That never happens. They know how to get in touch with me because Radius has our information on file if you do any sort of business with them. So I do think that probably does make a big difference, because this outside company definitely did not handle the situation very well at all.
Yeah, and you have to be on the buyer's agent and have them check as a listing agent. Did they order the appraisal? I mean, that's happened to me. oh yeah, yeah. And then, you call, then I have to get involved in call and they're like, oh, we just ordered today. I'm like, I've asked the agent 100 times. So sometimes you just have to go over everyone's head and call the lender yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had one scheduled yesterday at 10 a.m. and I was driving there to meet her. It was my listing. And she texted me on the way that she was unable to make it. And it's one of my flips. So I just texted her back. I gave her the code. I said, I know you're busy. I want you to be able to go when you want to. And, just let me know if you have any issues. And I followed up, haven't heard, followed up this morning, haven't heard. It's a really quick turnaround time for the contingency date. And I don't know, I'm going to call her when we hang up, but she had a really bad day on Friday. She said she was cracking a beer at 4 o'clock. So I just wanted to make her life easier. I mean, I think when you're nicer to them, you have less issues for values or any problems or anything. So, I mean, to give her the freedom to go on her own, I think is only helpful on my end to make sure she fits it into her schedule when she wants to, but I don't know.
Hey, can we go back to the open house thing that Melissa had brought up and just how people are handling showings? So we haven't really run a lot of open houses, mainly because, there's really not a need. I mean, you put a house on Wednesday or Thursday, I mean, that thing is gone. I mean, for the most part, right? And I don't want to set up an open house and then have to end up canceling it with people still showing up at the door. I don't want unqualified buyers showing up to houses, and most of them, even if you say, please bring your pre-approval, they don't, so what are you going to do? And, I want to maintain that control. So we haven't, if we do anything at all, they're controlled open houses where people have to block time, from 12 to 3, 15-minute increments. You have a block of time. And if an agent happens to show up with their client and they didn't schedule something, they have to wait till there's an opening. Like you show up at 2:30 and I have a 2:30, a 2:45, and a 3. I can get you in at 3:15, if you want to wait. So that's basically what we've been doing. Most of the time with our clients, we've been doing block showings the day it hits, the day after, and potentially the third day if we have to do it. But at that time, I think the client, for the most part, from what we've seen, they're ready to be done with it. They've got a handful of offers. It's what they're hoping to get. And they're just ready to get back in their house, get it disinfected, and move on with their life. So that's kind of how we've been handling things. I see a lot of people nodding their head. Is anyone doing something much different than that, or?
No, that's pretty much it, Corey. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lisa.
No, I mean, we definitely schedule some time for people because people want to know that their clients can get in. But if people show up that don't have appointments, we've been very generous about letting them come in. Of course, making sure we have all the proper protocol. We have gloves, we have masks if they need them. But, sometimes people are going to show up anyway, and that's fine with me. Sometimes people weren't even thinking of buying. So we had one couple who came to an open house. They weren't thinking of buying. Then they missed out on the house they wanted. That was this one. They decided, oh my gosh, we found out we could buy without selling the house we currently have. Well, it was too late. But we got their listing and we also have their buy side. So you know what? If I didn't let them in, I would have lost 2 deals. Yeah. So I'm just thinking, sometimes people just don't even know they want to move. And so I don't want to just completely leave them in the dark.
That's fair.
So I'm working with buyers who are primarily looking on the North Shore, and it's a different world up there, the way agents list property. And recently, the last 4 or 5 properties that I've tried to schedule, you need to forward a pre-approval before they confirm the appointment. You need to sign a form with COVID things listed, like I promise I'll wear gloves, I promise I'll wear a mask. You can't touch anything. You have to leave the house the way you found it. And what I'm finding is that these properties are all only allowing 50-minute time blocks to see it. And when it's done through showing time or whatever, days and days are just blocked out. So you get there, the door's open. The listing agent's not there. You're going in and you're assuming that the person that's already showing the house is another agent. It's just all, just have at it, people. And I just find that to be irresponsible.
Yeah.
If you're just doing 15-minute blocks for 8 hours, the house is wide open. No one's shutting the door using the lockbox. I just think it's crazy.
Yeah, I can testify to that too, Stephen, because I've been up in the North Shore a lot as well, and it was just like, I forget, the house was in Billerica or Burlington, and it was people right behind me, and it was just a couple, and I'm looking, they're just strolling in, like it was very disconcerting.
And I wonder if people driving by see this group of people waiting to get into a property, are they assuming it's an open house and just walking in? If you're gonna have 8 hours worth of showings and not be there and be responsible for the seller, I just think it's irresponsible.
Or you've got to have instruction from that listing agent to make sure that the house is locked up when you leave.
Yeah. Oh, I do.
I mean, I told them.
And the agent behind you is looking at you like, what are you doing? I'm like, I booked this appointment. I am securing the property. I am done seeing the property.
And if you have the appointment, then you should know what the lockbox is to open.
Correct.
Exactly.
But I just thought it was interesting that to book an appointment now in the North Shore, you have to have a pre-approval sent, and it has to be a pre-approval that's no older than 2 weeks old. You can't have one that's 30 days old. I just, some things are smart. I just think it's in the 20 question COVID page that they all send is different. So
It's true. Yeah. I saw showing instructions last week that included, submission of a pre-approval, submission of a COVID form before the showing would be confirmed. And this made me laugh. I don't mean to be disrespectful, and listing agent will meet you at the property and will apply hand sanitizer to.
Yes. I had one in Stoneham.
Go ahead.
We had one in Stoneham. We all lined up going in, and the listing, like we were in Oliver, and the listing agent all gave us a little squirt. We all rubbed our hands together, and then we went in. It was adorable.
It's like going to see a newborn.
Yes.
You can't do that.
I don't know about you, but I don't want to get that close to all those people I don't know,
Good. Use their hand sanitizer. Save yours.
I had an agent, we were doing a home inspection, and the seller said that they're requiring that you have to wear booties. And I said, oh gosh, I don't have booties. Do you have any? She goes, well, I will give you some, but I can only give it to you, and your buyers cannot sue me if they slip and die.
Oh my God.
I said, what? And she goes, oh no, it's happened. Somebody has sued because they slipped, hurt themselves, and they sued the agent for giving them the booties. I'm like, oh my Lord.
Not funny, but that's
The world.
Thank for Steve, he gave me booties, and so nobody slipped and fell and died, so we were safe. But that's what's going on out there too.
So my daughter's been looking in Delaware, and we've been FaceTiming with her while she looks. And there was this one house that had, it was the children's rooms. There were three, there was a nursery and then 2 kids' rooms. And they were roped off like it was a museum, so you couldn't go in. And it was, but they had the closet was open, and they had dimensions of the closet, so you could see enough of it to really feel the space. And at the same time, having it roped off felt special. It's adorable.
Was there a bouncer?
There was no bouncer.
Was there a Newport Mansions at Christmas?
Exactly.
I mean,
That's actually not a bad idea. You can tell clients that you're going to do that. If they're afraid to sell because of having children, I mean, that's makes sense to me. That's okay. Whatever this client wants is basically what we need to do. I mean, it's their house, and we have to respect that. And I don't care what another agent says to me or anything. I'm sorry. I'm working for my client. I'm not working for you and your client. You have to. This is someone's home. I think we all need to just tell these other agents they can go pound sand. I really don't care.
They can pound sand.
Yeah.
And working with buyers and working with these buyers specifically, they've been saying, oh, I want to see this property. It's at the, it's at what they're pre-approved for. I'm like, okay. So every house that we've gone to see, there's been a line of people waiting, getting in the door. So say you're approved for 375. So let's go in and look at 375. The offer is going to, an accepted offer is going to be $15,000, $20,000 over asking. Why are we going?
It's so difficult. I think they just have to learn. I mean, I've had clients too, and we have to write up the offers, and it's terrible.
Oh, I agree. And I just
so
feel,
awful.
I feel
But
awful that
I've
they're
had
making this huge purchase decision on a 15-minute visit.
I know. Takes us longer to buy shoes. You know?
It does.
You know,
Honestly.
That's why it's been so important with my buyers to really tell them what the negative
Right.
news is out there. You have to be the person to say,
Yep.
well, listen, this is what's going on.
Yep.
But I'm not telling you to be negative. I'm telling you that this is the reality out there. And this is the price range you have to be looking at because everybody's up and overbidding
Sure.
on that. And it's, you're going to get a lot more no's than you, but if you stick with it, you will get the yes. So.
well, they start to learn too. We had clients who, they've been outbid multiple times, and now they said, I see that we need a different strategy. Maybe we just need to look at a lower price point so we can look like, we can get something.
Yep.
So, I mean, that might be what has to happen, Steve. Like they have
Oh,
to
no,
start
we know.
looking at,
Yep.
jumping down a little bit.
Add
which
that conversation.
The
not
other thing too, I think the other thing too is, especially if you have a ton of buyers, is you have got to talk to that listing agent, and you have to have your list of questions. Like, are you, what's the,
What's
when
important to
they
your
buy
seller?
for the offers, and what are they looking for? All those basic questions. But if you just keep pumping them and asking question after question after question, you'll know right away if it's going to match and if you're going to be even in the running
sure.
for the offer. Especially if you know your buyers and what they're looking for. And then you have to tell them the bad news or the news, saying, well, they want to sign if they're selling their home. They want the P&S already signed before you even make an offer. I mean, I'd run into that as well. So, I mean, it's just you have to pump for information from the listing agent.
I'm hearing back that a lot of, we've had a few that the list agent has called and said, would your buyer be willing to waive home inspection?
And
the
that's
answer-
what
no.
my daughter, who did not get 3 houses that she made offers on, asked that question. And I, as a mother, I'm reluctant to give her advice to do that where she really has no skills or knowledge about houses or anything of that nature.
We talked about in one of our team meetings finding one of the home inspectors that we do a lot of business with, and just being like, hey, if our client gave you $100 to meet them at the showing and just go over, just go run through and look at the 3 biggest ticket items on the house, the 3 biggest ticket items, and they've got enough dough to kind of cover some of the stuff. They're okay with a few little things, but we're looking at the boiler, the electric, quick look at the plumbing in that window. If we could start doing that and then having a stronger offer up front. So they're not necessarily waiving their home inspection, but they're saying we're okay with this level of risk. I think that's kind of a dicey thing to do, but also if someone's okay with doing a little bit of work to a property and they can get a real quick home inspection, real quick, it might be worth it. I don't know. It's really hard to say, and I'm sure those home inspectors are so busy that they can't do it, but
it would be worth it. It would be worth it if you were allowed to bring more than the
Decision
makers into the property. So it's the agent and typically the 2 buyers that are purchasing the property. That's all you're permitted to bring into a property.
I just go in multiple times.
Good luck trying to get those appointments.
I found the last 2 weekends, I didn't do the scheduled open houses because it was just too hard to manage. Some people would be showing up late, some people would be showing up early, and so just kind of allowed 2 groups in at a time, and had another group in the backyard, or just try to keep people, if they were comfortable with it, going in at the same time. And that seemed to work well, and people were okay with it. There were some groups that waited till others were out of the house, but everybody seemed okay with that.
It's even at the point where we need to think about parking too, where are these people going to park? The 2 listings I had on the market last week. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Weird. I know my computer's doing strange things. The last 2 listings I've had have both been on main streets, and the driveways have been, limited and difficult to pull out of the driveway, and no more than 4 cars in the driveway at a time. So then we have to think about those logistics too. So I think we can all agree that right now it's really difficult
Bonkers.
to show property, whether you're on the buy side or the sell side. So you have to think about absolutely everything, and expectations are really high. So it's good to have these types of forums to just reassure ourselves that most of us are making the right decisions. So
Can I throw a few things out there, guys?
yes.
So just talking about getting back to some of those buyers you might have that have pre-approved at their max and feel like they can't go beyond it, and maybe that extra 20 grand would get them there. Really get that lender, and I of course I'm seeing things from the lender's perspective, right, in the numbers, but get that lender involved, and maybe even set up like a Zoom call with the buyers and yourself and the lender, because there are things that we can do to really save a buyer a ton of money, where their payment can be lower at a higher loan amount. So, let's say you have a buyer that's putting 10% down, and that's the way they're pre-approved initially. Straightforward, 10% down, monthly PMI, good credit, whatever, right? If instead of them putting 10% down, maybe I could structure it so they put 7% down if they wanted to. And then I take that extra 3%, that money they're not using anymore, and I can apply that towards points so they can buy their rate down. Maybe 1 point, and then the other 2 points can go towards them paying their PMI up front instead of paying it monthly. Now maybe they're saving $300 a month compared to what they were in our initial transaction, and I can increase my loan amount that I can approve them for now by $60,000, right? And their payment's the same or really, really close to it. So those are things that we can definitely do to get a buyer approved for more. Okay. The other thing, I don't know if anybody's ever worked with a temporary buy down, but at Radius, it's kind of like an inside joke where I'm the only person that originates like 2 or 3 temporary buy down loans a year. It's a program that's not used very often, but conventionally everybody offers it. A permanent buy down is when you pay a point to get a permanently lower interest rate. A temporary buy down works where a buyer pays money up front to temporarily buy their interest rate down. So if you did something like a 2-1 buy down, let's say that the 30-year fixed rate's at 3.25. They pay money up front in a 2-1 buy down so that the first year their interest rate is 2 full points below what the 30-year fixed rate is at, so 1.25. Year 2, it goes to 2.25. Year 3 to year 30, it stays at 3.25. They just pay that money up front. So it's really good for someone who's cash rich, but really sensitive on the, and not even cash rich, I mean 5 or 10% down, but really sensitive on the monthly payment perspective, right? They know that to get into their first house, they have to buy lawnmowers and furniture and all that stuff. And that could really allow them to, get approved for $20,000 more. And it's okay. They'll be okay with that extra $100 a month because it's not really coming for another 2 years.
Are you qualifying them at?
The note rate, the real note rate, the 3.25. Yeah. And they're not losing out any money on it. The cost of the buy down is just the difference between the 3.25 and the 1.25, and the difference between the 3.25 and the 2.25. They pay that up front. So that could be a really good option. And then just some of the notes I've been writing down when you guys are talking here. But a lot of our buyers for the last 3 years are going through this Groundhog Day where they're getting beat out in multiple offer situations. But contacting some of your best buyer success stories over the last few years, those people who lost out on 4, 5, 6 different houses and then finally ended up in the house that they love and was right for them, getting a testimonial from them and sharing it with those people that are going through exactly what they went through this year, last year, the year before, really speaks volumes. You can tell them about those people, but when they see those people's testimonials, and it doesn't have to be many, it could be 2, 3, or 4, just a handful to share with those people to say, see, stick with me, and I promise you it's going to end up just like it did for the Smiths.
That's great.
Good stuff, Bob.
Yeah, something that I've, well, first of all, Bob, I got someone who I want to have that conversation with. So maybe we could set up a Zoom for what we were just talking about. But something that we've been using with buyers that I normally wouldn't have thought about, just like being persistent, even all the way till the end. Like we had a couple, they had lost out on 2 already. And then we were in a multiple offer situation. And the listing agent got back to me and was like, they went with a different offer. And I told Corey, and these people are like really, really interested in this house, and like really excited about this one, even after they already lost out on a couple. And I told Corey, and he's like, just reach out and say, is there anything else we can do? Is there anything else we can do? And I was just like, right when he told me that, I was like, dude, it's over. Like we already lost it. So he's like, just say it. So I said it, and the lady immediately called me. And she was like, you know what, I've had a bad feeling about this other offer, and so is the seller. And if you can just change like these two things, we'll go with you guys. We haven't signed anything yet. I was like, they were so excited. And then we had the home inspection, and the listing agent basically told the buyers that that's why they got the house. So it made us look really good. So it's just like a really, sorry.
Well, the house in Braintree that I have listed now, the first two offers, the people backed out. So I feel like because it's so competitive that people might just be throwing down offers after their 15-minute meeting and then just deciding like that was having buyer's remorse or really thinking about it, thinking it through. So that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Happened to us on, two properties. We had two offers that walked away. It was the third offer on two last week that actually stuck.
I have one more question that's probably a bit off topic. It has to do with fair housing stuff. So we had a property on Royal Lake, and goes under agreement really fast. And this lady has all the correct paperwork, doctor submitted notes for an emotional support animal. This is a very strict no pets place, right? Like very strict. So we told this lady, like, listen, this is a strict no pets place, but if you have the right paperwork, we might be able to talk to the board and see, how, if we can get the emotional support animal in. So she did that and she submitted it. Her buyer's attorney submitted a letter that says, this is a fair housing thing. Here's all the doctor's note, the license for the animal, like all the stuff. I've never actually seen anything like that. Everyone has an emotional support animal, right? To get on a flight, to take wherever. But this lady like has real stuff. Sam has an emotional support dog, right? Peeps.
Borrowed that dog.
So anyway, we're still denying it and saying like, no, like we're not sure about it. So the attorney intervened again. They're going to reconsider. They're supposed to be voting this week. Has anyone ever dealt with anything like that and seen it kind of come through? I think the board would have a legal issue on their hand with the amount of documentation that this lady and the attorney has submitted, but I've never really run into this. The guy made a very convincing argument in this letter that he sent them. It was like, listen, you have a fair housing issue. Here's all the courses and all the cases and paragraph B, section 9 of whatever. So has anyone had any issues with that or experience with that?
We had one at Park Ave in Hull, and my client had an emotional support dog, and they were pretty strict about no dogs, and we did get it through. I talked to the trustee. We had paperwork from from her doctor. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Is it a small dog? I don't know if it's like that could be another
small
thing.
Dog. Yeah, it's like a tiny little dog.
Yeah. We got it through. I mean, but we did have to wait for the board to approve it.
Yeah, we had a case last year, and I turned to the Massachusetts Association of Realtors legal hotline, and they said it is fair housing. In fact, you don't really even have to supply information about the reason for it or much more than that. It's like a service animal to a certain extent. But what I would say, Corey, is that although you have the listing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, if I had the buyer, I would refer the buyer to Mass Commission Against Discrimination. One, my background's human resources. So, I was affirmative action officer for a bank. One letter from MCAD will just have you quaking in your boots. That's not something that the condo board really has any, stance with.
No, and I can speak from personal experience at Royal Lake because I have lived there myself. And though I didn't own the unit, my mother owned it. My parents bought it back in the 1980s. My mother still lives there. That complex in particular is known for exceptionally stringent bylaws, rules, and regulations. And as a reason, because of that, it almost in a way attracts a certain demographic. And they have been sued more than once for different reasons having to do with discrimination, fair housing violation, but also, you know, random things that they've actually, where the association has prevailed. There was one couple who, you know, lived there as their primary residence for the longest time, and they had a small family, and they ended up, you know, filing a lawsuit that they pursued in court for like 3 years over, you know, the type of vehicle that they wanted to park in their designated parking space. And they spent, you know, $100,000 to carry it through court to try to have their right to park their vehicle, and they lost, and the association prevailed. So if it, you know,
yeah, but a vehicle is not a federally protected class. You know, that, I mean, the case with Corey, I mean, being disabled is a federally protected class.
Yes.
Wanting to have a commercial vehicle, which is probably what the case was, is not a federally protected class.
Right. Yeah.
Donna, thank you. I'm going to make the suggestion to those guys to
That's a great suggestion.
contact the commission, just to kind of tee them up as to what may be coming down the road. So,
yeah.
So you don't have any other buyers for that unit?
So the tricky part is like, we took the offer very quickly. It's a cash offer, you know, was set to close, and now it's been off the market, and they've delayed their home inspection because they don't want to pay $500 for a home inspection, and then the board says the pet can't come. So now we've been off the market for like 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. So it's already kind of under contract with those people. Okay.
Yeah.
Because the other sticky situation is if you go, like, if it hasn't been accepted offer or whatever, and then another buyer comes in, they're like, well, I'm just going to go take them, then that's another problem.
Right. Well, the unit above theirs has a seeing eye dog.
Oh.
You know, like, as I was telling these people, they have a very strict pet policy. The guy came walking downstairs with a seeing eye dog, and I was like,
Great.
Well, here we go. Really great.
You know,
but I also told them, I said, I have to imagine that whatever they had to do to get the seeing eye dog in, if you have the same situation, you're a service animal, there's probably a process. So let's look into it. And, you know, I didn't realize, Missy had told me for weeks how strict this place was. I thought, well, this is a slam dunk. They should be able to just be like, well, we'll make an exception for this. That has not been the case. So I will have these guys contact the commission. The offer, honestly, it's really great. It's a very aggressive offer. We should ride this thing out.
The emotional support animals definitely are coming big. I mean, the amount of children that have them in their dorms, including dogs.
Oh, wow.
You know, this is the state allowing dogs to be in a dorm in a big college campus. That would never have happened 10 years ago. But I agree with Donna that, you know, the association may have issues because it's something that's definitely, you know, okay now. People always have these little animals, whether it's a dog, a cat, a hamster, or whatever it is. The colleges are letting them live in a small dorm. You know, that's.
As long as, you know, when they start saying you can marry him, that's when I'm going to have a problem.
Right. Awesome. All right. Well, guys, it's a little after 10. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you got some great tips and got your questions answered. If you have any suggestions for another topic, please let myself or Bob know, and we will make sure that we put that on the list. And I hope you guys have an awesome week.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Remember my